Hey, Rebel Bankers, it's your host, Chris Naugle, and welcome to the show. You know, I'm really excited. I've got an extra special guest today, Greg Herlean, a personal friend of mine, and we're going to talk a little bit about how Greg got started, some of the obstacles he went through, and some of the things he had to overcome from his first deal all the way to now, and a lot more. So I'm really excited for you to hear this story. I've heard it. It's incredible and motivating, and you're about to take a trip back in time with Greg to hear more about what he's done and how he's done it. So I want you all to get started on your journey too. So before becoming a Rebel Banker, there's a couple things you should probably do. First off, grab a copy of my book, The Private Money Guide. But not only that, if you want to learn more about the way we work with people and the way we help people find money, the way we help people understand how money works, check out my website for more events and more information, and it's chrisnaugle.com. Now let's jump right into this thing because I'm excited to hear this story again, and I'm sure you guys are too. So, Greg, tell me a little bit about your past. Like, how did you get started? What were some of the obstacles you had to go through? And most importantly, let's actually start real quick with what does your investing business look like today?
Well, first, thanks, Chris. Thanks for having me. It's always fun actually to share, especially with friends of mine like you are. Even though you've heard my story, sometimes I give more details and or maybe less, and you can kind of say, "Hey, you forgot to mention this." But so look, today. I mean, I couldn't have dreamed of where I am today 18 years ago when I first started. I didn't know this was all possible, frankly, which is awesome. You know, I do pinch myself a little bit. Knowing that, you know, today, you know, I've lent over $1.3 billion in different real estate transactions. Yeah, it's been a lot of money, and you know, I live comfortably, and I get to be with my family often, and you know, I've just done a lot of transactions. I've invested in a few businesses as well that have gone well, and but, you know, as I tell you this, I look at the poster that many of you seen. I'm not really a big proponent of these motivational posters. Actually, I don't love them really, to be honest. I feel like I'm a positive person, but those motivational rah-rah posters I don't like. But this one that's in my office, I would probably consider as one of those. But it kind of goes in tune. You asked me at the top, basically, how are you today? And that's the picture I have here is the iceberg, right? You've seen that, right? Where it's like it shows the water line. And at the top, it shows success. But below it, there's about 10 layers of how I had the success. So you asked me the awesome part of lending, but the 10 things below it, hard work, persistence, late nights, rejection, sacrifice, discipline, criticism, doubts, failures, and risks. That's how I got here today. And so it's been a wild ride. It's been it's amazing, and I'm grateful for where I am today for sure.
That's amazing. And, you know, that poster, I've seen that a million times, and that couldn't be truer. You know, like everybody only sees what they want to see, but they don't know the whole journey. And I know the one thing I do is I find successful people and I follow them around, people just like Greg here. And I always want to know their story from the beginning. I want to know, like, where did it start? Did you struggle, or was it just all easy for you? So, Greg, let's talk a little bit about your first deal and some of the obstacles you had with that, some of the hesitations maybe you felt, and just tell everybody, like, what was that like?
Well, look, my first deal, you know, people out there, when I go and listen to people speak often, especially people on TV or different stages, they talk about finding the deal. And they're like, look, you find a good deal, the money comes. And I couldn't disagree more. In the beginning, when you're doing your first couple of deals, finding the money is is the most difficult thing, unless you come from money, right? If you're in the circles of money and understand money, good for you. That's not where I came from. And so finding money was the most difficult thing for me. And so I was finding deals and opportunities, and I understood, how to manage at least I thought I knew how to manage a project, right? So I was finding different people that could help me rehab a deal, realtors and different people to help me find the deal. But when it came down to it, when it was all said and done, I needed to find the money. And so I'd say a mentor at the time, a gentleman that I met in the industry, he taught me this concept about self-directing IRAs. and how you could use your IRA to lend and or whatever you want in real estate. So I didn't have an IRA. My family didn't have IRAs really, at least none that they would offer up to me by any means. And so I was able to talk to a gentleman. I remember he was about 60 at the time, and I was 23. And he believed in me. He lent me $60,000 in my first real estate transaction that I was buying. It was a condo that I was fixing and flipping. And the deal I struck with him is I gave him I gave him title on the property. So I had no other liens. I couldn't get a loan, right? So if you think you have to get a bank loan and good credit to do real estate, you're wrong. And to this day, I should tell you, of the literally I shouldn't say, I've done hundreds. I haven't done thousands, but I've done hundreds of deals. I've never used a bank to acquire a property or an asset. Never. Now, it doesn't mean that after I didn't acquire it, I then went and got better financing from banks. I've done that probably 15 times. That's it. So I got real creative and using my, other people's monies and now obviously my monies. But going back to my first deal, I educated this gentleman on how he could use part of his $600,000 IRA to lend me $60,000. Actually, it was $500,000 IRA, and lend me $60,000. And I gave him 75% of the deal. That was my deal with him. And after I flipped it, he got back his $60,000 plus 12. So he got back $72,000 in 3 months, and I got 4. So in 3 months, I did all the work. I found the deal, rehabbed the deal, dealt with realtors, attorneys, everything else you want to think about. And when I sold, I got $4,000. That was my first deal.
There's a lot of people that probably wouldn't have taken a deal because they would have been like, oh, that's not enough for me to make. But I mean,
yeah,
that's the truth. That's just how it starts.
It's how it starts. And so, after that deal, I did 2 more like that, just the same kind of terms. And I proved myself to him. And also I proved myself to myself that I could actually do this, proofs in the pudding. And so after I flipped it a couple times with them, I then changed the terms. I made it 50-50. Then I made it 75 me, 25 him. Then years later, I made it 8%. I paid to him flat rate, interest rate, annual rate of return, and I kept the difference. The message and the moral of the story there is I was persistent, but I also was creative, and I was willing to give up whatever I could to get money to do my first deals. I look back at that, and he had worked for me until he died. Actually, he died 2 years ago now. At the age of about 80 years old, and so he I don't know how many deals he did with me, but if I wouldn't have, and he wouldn't have taken the risk, but I also wouldn't have given him such a big return, he might not have been that person for me. And he ended up doing so many deals. He really changed my life in real estate. And so if I had to go back and do it all over again, I would have, I'd do the same thing. But if he would have said, give me 100% of the profits on your first deal, I probably would have said no. But I should have said yes if he would have asked for that. Because if I could have just proven it, made nothing but proven the concept and paid him a good rate of return, I would have then proved myself to him, and he'd be my banker for the rest of his life and potentially mine. So the message there is I was aggressive. I went and found money. I gave him a first lien position on the property. I gave him the terms he was looking for at the time because I didn't have much room to negotiate. I was looking for just whatever I could. And it worked out really well. It was a good return and a good relationship. So that was my first deal, and I did many similar deals like that for the first year. Really, I was in business.
That's amazing. And I think the best thing I love about that story is when you gave up most of the deal, but if you could have went back, you would have given it up all of the deal. And there's so many people that look at this and we're in real estate to make a lot of money. I mean, that's the motivating factor. I mean, everybody knows real estate's made more millionaires than anything else. And we want to make a lot of money, but sometimes in order to make that money, you have to take a step back to take 2 steps forward. And I always say, and you've heard me say this before, it's never about your actual resources. It's about how resourceful you can be. You had to get resourceful. You had to teach him how it worked. And not only that, you had to give up almost all of the deal to make that happen. But the knowledge you got out of that and the trust you built out of that, funded, I don't know how many deals you did with him, and how many deals you were able to help him do with other people with lending. it's just, that's how it starts. And it's literally like a snowball at the top of the hill. It starts this big and it just grows and grows and grows. And, you know, that grew up through his whole life. And I think that's incredible. So with that being said, tell us a little bit about some of the internal obstacles that you've faced in the business to get where you are. Like, what are some of the things that have happened, whether it be on the lending side or on the, you know, when you were actually doing the flips? Did you ever face fear, objection, hesitation? Like, what were some of those things like for you?
That's a great question. It's weird to think. I still feel like I'm really young, but then when I think about how many deals I've done and how much money I've lost and made, I start feeling really old. But
well, how old are you? Most people don't know. You are young.
40. I'm 40 years old.
40 years old.
4 kids and 40 years old. And so, look, you know, it's hard. I don't want to say this in a bad way. I mean, I'll tell you, but first I want to say is because of how I grew up, and lots of different variables for that. I really never considered that I was going to fail. I actually never went to bed thinking. I was never that fearful. I mean, sure, I got stressed, normal stresses, but I just knew that I was going to figure it out. I've always been that way. And so I don't know if you're born with that or if you build that over time. I really can't answer that question, but I do want to mention that because I do feel like that's one of the really big strengths I have is thick or thin, no matter what happens, I'm going to figure it out. You know, when the market crashes and I lose everything, I'm going to have to prove to myself I really know what I'm doing because everyone made money in 2004 through 7. I wasn't a genius then. Everyone that bought a piece of property was. I became a genius in 2009 when I proceeded to flip over 100 homes in the worst market ever because I was practicing the principles that I taught beforehand, but I was actually able to prove it when no one else was making money in that time. So sorry, I'm giving you a strength, I feel like, but I also want to let you know that it's an important thing is I just never doubted myself. I knew there's money available out there. There's deals always available. It was up for me to figure it out. You know, I'd say some of my biggest stresses have been in partnerships. You know, I love partners, but they're also, you know, they're kind of like, they're like family, you know, you're once you're with them, you're kind of stuck with them at least for a little while. And so prematurely, you know, some of the mistakes I made is partnering with people that were just like me. So this is a common problem when you first get started in real estate. You got 2 sales-oriented people that are aggressive, that are great. I'd focus on my partnerships, and these partnerships would disappoint me if you and your best friend or a friend of yours are going to be in the real estate business and you have the exact same strengths. It's the wrong partnership. You need to find a team that makes you better. And I didn't always do that in the beginning of my career. I started to get better at that. But the best advice I can give you is create a team or referral network of individuals who are great at things that you're not good at. So you not only can learn from them, but they can help you in areas. If you're not good at talking to people and raising money, you better find a partner or someone that is. If you're not good and like details of design and stuff, I'm not. I hate that. I'm not good at design. I mean, if you show me 2 options, I can pick between 1 and 2. But if I have to go and pick the paint of 50 different colors, forget it. Can't do it. And I don't want to do it. So find people that are good at what you're not at. That's the best advice I can give you because it's something I didn't do very well in the beginning. I thought I'd partner with people I like. You know, I'm going to partner with Chris Naugle. Him and I are like, we like to do the same things. We're good friends. Chris and I are very similar. We're very similar in a lot of different areas. If we're doing the exact same thing, it's not going to help the company. I need to bring something different than Chris is going to do. So that's probably the best advice I can give that I learned the hard way. The other piece of advice I give you is terms on your money. I learned that early on, but it did take me about 2 or 3 years to learn it. And I don't think I actually learned. I actually just started doing it. I didn't realize why I was doing it until years later, which is paying attention to what you're paying on money. If you're borrowing money, you don't necessarily need to pay these huge rates. Ask your lenders or your friends or whoever's going to partner with you what they're looking for on their money. They might say they want to make 6-7% on their money. You're going to give them 15 or 20. You just saved yourself 5 to 10% a year in interest costs. On a $100,000 deal, it's $10,000. so many of us are quick in the beginning because we're anxious to find money to just give it away. I gave it away. I was anxious. I probably didn't have to give him 75%. He didn't ask for it. I offered it to him. So just listen. That's my advice. That might help you in relationships too. But if you're a good listener, you're going to also be able to communicate and be a better business partner, a better lover partner. But also you're going to be able to find out what your money really should cost. If you can listen to your money people, they're going to tell you what they're looking for without you throwing up on them some kind of rate that they actually aren't even looking for. Anyways, that's probably my advice. But as far as, the fears and the stresses and the worries and criticisms, I can't share too much of that with you. I mean, I wrote something and I've done it a couple of times in my life about social media. Probably wrote it 3 times in the last 10 years or 15. I appreciate my haters. They're always there, and family are sometimes the hardest, friends too. But my haters are kind of encourage me. If they don't believe or they're jealous or they don't think I can do it, that's motivating. Without them, I think I would not be as successful. So I turn those lemons into lemonade for me. So.
That's incredible. That's Rebel Bankers. I mean, that is just a golden takeaway right there. That's a golden nugget. The fact that we are sometimes, especially in the beginning, so anxious to do a deal and we need money so bad that we're willing to just go out there and say, I'll give you 15%, I'll give you 12%. You call that out when that person in their mind might have only been thinking, I'd be okay with 5 or 8%. So just switching that dynamic and changing your mindset to actually just ask, what do you want? That's a pretty simple question. How much do you need? What do you want? What would make you happy? I mean, I love that. And you know what? I'm guilty of that sometimes, and I don't do it as much anymore, but sometimes I'm just like, well, how's 12% sound? They would have taken 10. They would have taken 8. So that's amazing. And, the other thing, Greg, that we often do on this is that we always try to kind of ask our guests about the external objections. But you just hit on one of those that I don't think I've heard before with social media and the haters. And I think that's important because as we all kind of go down our journey and we climb up, and if social media is the thing that we use, you're going to build haters. You're just going to find those people that want to hate on you for just about anything. And you can either allow that to affect you and then kind of change your course of direction so you get off track, or you use that to fuel you and you use that as jet fuel. So I think that's awesome. Was there any other objections or external things that happened in your life, like early on when you first got into this? Was there people in your life saying, I wouldn't do that, that doesn't sound like a good idea? Was there anything else?
Look, a lot of the people in my industry had friends or family that had money, at least a little bit of money. I never had that. So my objections were more from them. Like they didn't hate on me, my family, but they also didn't, they're like, whatever. I didn't get much support from them. And then I remember my dad had this small IRA. It was like $50,000, and he wouldn't lend any of that to me. I don't blame him. I was a little boy. After I was already making more money than him, 5 years into my career, he, and a good guy, he said, I'll invest $5,000 with you. And I was like, well, what am I going to do with $5,000? I can't, but it's just funny. So no, I don't have, I don't, besides the, the normal things where people are the most important thing in your business, but they're also the thing that can really mess up your business. So choosing your team is, that relationships is really my number one. But no, I don't have really any more external things that at least that come to mind. Even the haters, I didn't have many haters. They probably unbelievers in the beginning. They didn't believe in me, but I was just too new. I dropped out of college. People thought that was crazy to do what I did. But I think that's important. What you just said there, that's really important. You dropped out of college. I can't, and same thing with my life. I can't tell you how many times I've been asked, well, where did you go to school? What degree did you get? And like people judge you just by this piece of paper that we get from going to college, yet judge us on our actions, judge us on what we've accomplished. And that's what you did. You just proved everybody wrong. You just blazed your own path
said, forget that piece of paper. I've got different objections. And so many people that I meet, and I'm sure you, think that I have to go to college. I got to finish a 4-year degree. I got to get my master's, and then I can get on with my success path. Then I can go on to chase my dreams. And that wasn't your journey.
No.
And right. The last thing that we're going to cover, and I always ask this, is from your first deal to say your third or fifth deal, how did you transform? Like, what changed that you were doing? Did your confidence levels change? Like, what happened in that beginning on those first couple deals that completely transformed you and made you blaze that path that you did?
I think confidence is probably a great word that you just used. I mean, when I did my first deal, I was selling to somebody as though I had done it before and that I was going to be amazing at it, assuming that I would. But by the time I had done 3, 4, 5 deals, I proved to myself. So yeah, my confidence went way up. My demeanor, the way I could talk about different subjects, just by, doing a few deals and there being hurdles and problems. Look, they're not all winners. And so I've learned that too, So yeah, I mean, confidence was a big one. I've always been pretty confident, but it changes when you have confidence plus experience, when you could actually talk about specific deals, and have a team that's starting to kind of come together. So, you used the word. I would probably use the same one. I mean, I was persistent too. So I just didn't give up. That's the thing I learned too, is early on. I just would never give up, One thing I always would share with people now again, I can look back and what worked for me is, I said this before, no is not final and yes is. So look, people are going to tell me no. And also I'm going to look at a lot of deals and say no. I'm going to say no to a lot of deals. So many of us get wrapped up and we got to do the next deal. Guess what? If you say no to that next great deal, tomorrow there's going to be another great deal. So it's okay to say no and pass on deals. And because you're going to get a yes. You're going to find the next property that's going to be a great one. And you're also going to get a yes if I reverse the roles. I'm going to get no's and rejected on deals I'm trying to make offers on, and eventually I'll get a yes. So anyways, those are my thoughts as far as that goes.
Oh, this has been awesome. I've heard the story, but every time I hear it, I pick up on new things. And, I think this has been fantastic. We're always trying to motivate and inspire people to kind of get them onto their dreams and their goals. And I always think, and, that's kind of what this book was all about, and what this podcast is all about, is don't let money be that thing that stops you from getting where you're going to go, because it's everywhere. But it's the biggest hurdle everybody faces when they first get into real estate. They think they need all this money before they can get to the next step. And I think hearing these stories, just like your story and like so many others, it shows you that we all kind of have our own paths, but the path didn't involve starting with a ton of money. It was basically just being resourceful and finding a way to make it happen and not let anything stand in your way. And I think that's just incredibly motivational. So I really appreciate your time being on here with us tonight. But tell us, if anyone wants to, look up what you're doing or do business with you and track you down, like, how do they do that? Where would they find what you do and anything that you're doing? Like, how would they do that?
Well, thanks. First of all, thanks, Chris. Thanks for having me. I consider you a good friend. Our story alone deserves a podcast another time to talk about how you and I met and in the transition. That would be a fun story. But I'm sure you've shared some of that, and you have in your book too. So thanks, by the way, for your book. So look, if you want to find me, my website's the best place to go. I have little information I give to people if they want to learn more. But if you go to my website, gregherlean.com, anything I can do to help and serve, I got a team that helps as well. But website's gregherlean.com, GREGHERLEAN.com. So thank you.
That's perfect. Amazing. Well, thank you for your time. And, that goes for all of you here at Money School and all of our Rebel bankers here. If you guys are getting ready to start your journey, or you're already on your journey and you're just looking to catapult yourself faster, smarter, and more efficiently, you got to just take that leap and you got to make it happen. I don't mean to keep going back to this, but the Private Money Guide literally is a guideline for money and how to find it, the solutions to where it's at, how to ask for it. So check that out. And you can always check out everything we're doing, from our events to our podcast that's coming up. Check it out at chrisnaugle.com. So with that being said, Greg, thank you so much for joining us here. And You know, I value your friendship and everything we do more than I can ever say in words. And thank you so much for being part of this podcast. And that's about it for the Real Estate Money School. Thank you all for joining us.